making chicken and dumplings. I've already got a lot of it started because it would be a really long video if I just sit here and did it. But I have most of the dumplings already cut up, and I like to add them all at once so they can cook evenly, because if they get overcooked, like, they get really chewy, and that's gross. But I'm gonna do the last one just so I can show you, Lexi, what I do. And all that I use is just a can of biscuits. I get the Grand's Southern Home Style, but any can of biscuits I'm sure will be fine. And I roll them out flat so they're kind of thinner, and it's dough, so it's sticky, so you gotta kind of flour it, and you can't add too much flour. Like, it's not possible. I left my rolling pin at home, so I'm using a glass. I broke one because I dropped it a while ago. But you just roll it out, and if it does stick to your thing, just flip it over. It just needs some more flour. It's okay. There's literally no wrong way to do this. You can't mess it up. This recipe is easy. Which the recipe that I have, which I even wrote it, but I've already tinkered with it, so it's not exactly how I do it. But I will tell you exactly what I did. So when you look at the recipe, you can go back on the video and listen. So. And I'm sorry that these videos take so long to upload. Like my last video, which you haven't viewed yet, took like a whole day to upload. So frustrating. But once I get that rolled out to pretty thin, I'm sorry, I've done the whole biscuits. I wasn't thinking. I cut them into strips, which they're not very thick at all or wide. You can see how thin they are. And then I just cut them all the way down into little squares. The reason I cut them small, I cut them about that big, like they're really small, is because when they hit that water, they instantly puff up. Instant. I'll show you. And I will explain the water, because it's mostly chicken broth. At Walmart, or the dollar store actually has them too. Any of your grocery stores will have these, but it is cartons. They're like this tall. It's like a box carton, and it's called chicken stock. They do have chicken broth, and yes, you can use it. But I prefer the flavor of chicken stock. And the difference between broth and stock is cooked with the bones and everything, and broth is just chicken broth. But the bones, the bones give more flavor, therefore the chicken stock has more flavor. And I use, the recipe, I normally use 2 chicken breasts, but I had 3 in the package, so I just used 3. But what you do is you put those two containers of chicken broth into your pan and heat it up to a boil. Put your chicken in there, your chicken breast, and just boil that until it's done. And if the broth doesn't cover your chicken, which it will, I'm sure, you can add some water. And when that boils down, as it cooks, because steam, when stuff boils, it kind of evaporates the water. I don't know if you know that. But you can add a few more cups of water to that if you want. You remove your chicken once it's done. Then you add, I've already took the paper off, a 10.5 ounce of cream of chicken soup. Just comes in a can. The wrapper fell off, but you add that once you pull your chicken out. And you stir it in. I like to stir it in with a whisk because it just kind of breaks it up easier. You stir that in, and you might remember this from my previous video, but this is one of my favorite seasonings. I add that. You just add as much as you want. salt and pepper and garlic. That's what I like. But I'm going to show you this. Wow. It's gonna, I was worried about that, the steam. I'm afraid to just like dump them in because then they'll splash everywhere. That water's hot. Turn the heat up just a little. See how those puff up? And it makes a lot of dumplings. And you don't have to cut them small. This is just a preference. I used to cut them. I used to not even roll them out. I just kind of flattened them with my hand. I didn't even use flour. The flour also aids in thickening this, because flour is a natural thickener. Now, you don't want to just add raw flour to a recipe and not cook it out. Like, say for instance, you had this done, and you're like, oh, I want it to be thicker, I want to throw in some flour. No, the raw flour would taste disgusting. But because I'm putting raw flour in there now, and it's going to cook with the dumplings, it is okay, because it's going to cook. But that's why I cut them small right there, is because I like that size. Then you just stir them around, and they take about, oh, what does my recipe say? About 30 minutes, yeah. That'd take about 20-30 minutes to cook. I'm sorry if my camera wasn't on there. And you want it to simmer. And simmer, I think I told you in my last video, but I'll tell you again. A simmer means it's just enough where it's not really boiling, but the water's bubbling. But it's not bubbling a lot, like it's slightly moving. Just a simmer. Well, it's about medium heat is a simmer. But I don't know if I covered it or not. Nope. But once those are done, then you can shred your chicken and add it. And you just cook, and it just cooks. Isabel's crying, and it's got me distracted. But I think I covered everything. Use your broth, your seasonings, cook your chicken, take your chicken out, add your soup, cut your biscuits up. Cook it for about 30 minutes. And then it's done. Then you add your chicken, your shredded chicken, and it's chicken and dumplings, and it's delicious. And it stores in the fridge in a sealed container for up to 5 days. I don't usually eat it past 4 days, but 5 days is fine. And if it's not as thick as you like when everything's done, it'll always thicken when it cools, always. So, don't fret.